Operation Dudula, an anti-migrant group in South Africa, has registered as a political party to run in next year's elections. The organization was created in 2020 as a social media campaign with the hashtag Put South Africa First. It later morphed into an organization called Operation Dudula. Now, the word Dudula means push out in the Zulu language. The group has become notorious for raiding businesses owned by foreign nationals, aiming to drive them out of the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned Operation Dudula as a, quote, vigilante-like force. But authorities have been seen as slow in tackling increasing mob justice. We'll get more from our analyst in a moment. But first, DW's Dianne Hawker has this report from Johannesburg.
Why are you here? Why are you here in our country?
This is Operation Dudula. They want migrants to leave South African townships and are ready to force them out. Their intentions are clear in the name. Dudula means push out in isiZulu. They believe too much of the township's economy rests in the hands of migrants. Up until now, Operation Dudula has focused on closing down shops they claim were set up illegally by foreign nationals. Now the organization has decided to rebrand itself as a political party, aiming to run in South Africa's 2024 national elections. Anti-foreigner rhetoric is at the core of their policies. That's why they've been accused of xenophobia and inciting violence against migrants.
Operation Dudula is not a xenophobic group. We are not vigilantes. We are a peaceful movement, actually. We refuse to share the little that we have with foreign nationals. We refuse.
South Africa's political environment is quite competitive, and support at community level doesn't automatically translate into votes. However, Operation Dudula believes that the issues that it's campaigning on, which include unemployment and poverty, will resonate with residents of Soweto and other townships across South Africa. Over 40% of people of working age are currently unemployed in South Africa, and this has led to tensions over jobs. Many migrants accept lower wages and work longer hours than locals.
If you go to many of the companies, they've hired a lot of migrants. Now people who travel from different parts of South Africa looking for work can't get any jobs. But Operation Dudula has shown us that we should do things for ourselves. In my area, most of the houses are owned by foreigners. It's become unaffordable for local people.
In the build-up to the election, the organization plans to intensify its raids on township shops, called spazas. They claim the foreign-owned shops are operating legally, are selling expired goods, and want the stores to be taken over by South Africans. Many of these shops are run by people from Ethiopian, Pakistani or Somali communities. They've made South Africa their home and believe the country's constitution offers them protection. It says South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
There must be a plan of integration, economic integration in the communities. That's why we should not look as enemies. We have to help each other. We have to think together. And if some problem, we have to look for solution together, not in isolation. Dudula won't give a solution for the location, for the community.
Operation Dudula is setting up branches in all 9 provinces. While their support is growing in some townships, their policies don't reflect the views of all communities. Many South Africans live alongside migrants from across Africa and beyond.
For more on this, let's bring in Dr Anthony Kaziboni. He's the head of research at the University of Johannesburg's Africa Center for Evidence and one of South Africa's leading experts on migration policies. Hello and welcome to the program, sir. Now, the Operation Dudula party claims to have widespread support, but How widespread is that support?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. When one looks at the kind of publicity Operation Dudula has garnered, particularly with social media as well as your conventional media channels, it may seem like they're more popular than they actually are. One needs also to understand areas in which Operation Dudula is quite popular, in quotes. The greater part of South Africa, most of the population is experiencing what commentators have dubbed the triple challenge. So you will realize that in communities that are experiencing high levels of poverty and unemployment, they may get support. So it's not really an accurate way to imagine that this vigilante, now political party, has overwhelming support in the country.
Okay. But what they do clearly has overwhelming consequences, one could say. A member of Operation Dudula party, Isaac Lesole, said this on record, and I quote, "We view illegal immigrants as criminals and they must go back to their countries. Isn't this xenophobia?"
We need to deal with prejudice and we need to deal with stereotypes and discrimination. And not all South Africans are xenophobic, and not all foreigners are criminal, diseased, or illegal. And I've engaged Mr. Isaac Lesole himself last year during a launch of a report that I led in writing on busting immigrant myths. They do come across saying those utterances. They do project the idea that they have a huge support. And as it is now, what's also worrying, if I may be honest with you, is how vigilante goes to an extent unpunished. So we really need to start looking at how the National Action Plan, which was implemented by the country in 2019 in order to deal with issues around racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia included, and other forms of discrimination, to ensure that people who make xenophobic utterances are held accountable. People who perpetuate xenophobic violence are also held accountable.
Now, many supporters of Operation Dudula have been accused of hate speech and physical violence. Isn't there concern that they could spread xenophobia even more as a political party?
The concern is legitimate. The concern is real. Last year, mid-last year, some United Nations experts noted that South Africa was on the precipice of explosive violence, and they were particularly focusing on Operation Dudula then when it was a vigilante group. But looking at where we are now and how the Independent Electoral Commission has registered this vigilante, right-wing, very conservative, narrow-nationalistic party now, it's worrying.
It is worrying indeed. Operation Dudula, we know they want foreign nationals who are in the country unofficially to be deported. But here's the thing, South Africa's constitution gives limited rights to all people within the country's borders, regardless of nationality or birthplace. So shouldn't Operation Dudula's actions be deemed illegal or unconstitutional? Because from where we see things now, they've just become a natural part of society.
The Constitution, particularly Section 2, the Bill of Rights, gives rights to everyone who is in South Africa. And it's important to understand and locate the lack of documentation in South Africa. The Department of Home Affairs has a very big backlog, and the department in itself has administrative inadequacies. It's struggling. So if you understand the lack of documentation within that context, furthermore, there are many South Africans without papers. It becomes very tricky to allow such a dangerous group moving around in communities, terrorizing people unabated.
So what does the rise of Operation Dudula say about South Africa's society overall?
In this instance, you look at how the Independent Electoral Commission accepted Operation Dudula. It's a learning curve for everyone. It's a learning curve for policymakers, for lawmakers to look at the criteria they have listed and whether or not it would be wise and acceptable to accept such. albeit the fact that Operation Dudula has come out and said that they will refrain from exercising violence, it's still worrying that the premise of the party is a narrow nationalistic, patriotic understanding of what South Africans are and what South Africa needs. So it seems to create and foster discrimination from the onset.
Would you say the current government, of course, largely ANC, has done enough to, slow down or prevent such rhetorics from Operation Dudula?
It's more complicated than Operation Dudula. The current government is struggling in several areas. And unfortunately, people in key political positions, people in senior government have also been perpetuating some of these reasons that Operation Dudula has latched onto. Issues around the lack of employment opportunities has been attributed to an overflow of immigrants. But if you look at the statistics, they present a very different picture. Your statistics in South Africa based in 2022 indicate that there was about a 6.5 immigrant population in the country, which is in line with international norms. You'll hear that immigrants are responsible, for the decline in service delivery, in the decline in social welfare, the decline of healthcare facilities. Looking at healthcare in itself, at that proportion, it's statistically impossible for immigrants to be responsible for failing healthcare in South Africa.
Dr. Anthony Kaziboni from the University of Johannesburg, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.